This album has been very warmly received.
Yeah, it has.
Were you surprised in any way by that?
No, I wouldn't have been surprised if it came and went.
Yeah.
When I'm working on something and I feel passionate about it,
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't surprise me if others feel the same way. But an example of that would be when I was making Graceland.
Yeah.
I thought, I just love this. And as it turned out, other people loved it, but you couldn't have said in advance, well, there's just a hunger for South African music
Yes.
combined with American culture.
Sure.
It didn't exist, but it did satiate some hunger. On the other hand,
Yeah.
when I made The Cape Man, the show that briefly made its run on Broadway, I also thought this is very interesting. This is a really interesting combination of musical styles, but no, it didn't. It didn't resonate in the same way. So I'm not surprised that this was accepted. I wouldn't have been surprised if people ignored it.
Yeah. You've talked about this a little bit, I know, but this came to you in a dream.
Partly, yeah, it did. I can show you that. You might find this interesting. On the January 15th, 2019, I had this dream. The dream said, you're working on a piece called Seven Psalms, or you should start working on this piece called, the dream was so vivid that I woke up and wrote it down. I don't usually, it's not like lines of songs that have never come to me in dreams, they have. But this was so vivid that I got up and wrote it down, Seven Psalms, and the PS was because the Psalms had the PS and then it was like a note to myself, Psalms of David. So I didn't even know really what was a psalm, you know? I mean,
when something as vivid as that happens, what do you make of it?
I think it's worth, it's worth paying attention to it.
Yeah.
To me, it was significant enough that I wrote it down so that to make sure I wouldn't forget it by the next morning.
Yeah.
And when I thought of it the next day, I went to the Bible and I looked up the Psalms of David, and I thought, I don't think I'll be writing this, you know. I don't know what I'll be writing. I don't know what this is about. But since it came to me in a dream with someone or something telling me to do this, I said, well, look, it's not my idea anyway, so I'll just wait till there's clarification of what I'm supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Did you get clarification?
Yeah, it did come as guitar pieces, not words, but guitar. And we were in COVID isolation, lockdown. So it was, that first lockdown was really a fortuitous event for a lot of artists, I think, because everything got quiet. You were by yourself, and nothing was going on in the world other than this. So the guitar pieces started to come, and they came pretty freely for about a year, and I almost had 7 pieces. And then I started to get words and phrases in dreams again.
Yeah.
And they would come like 2-3 times a week between 3 and 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And I would just write them down. And so I said, okay, this is just one of those experiences that I guess I've had throughout my life where something, I don't want to use the cliche, but I'll go to the cliche, where you're a conduit.
Yeah.
You feel like some piece of information is coming through you and you are expressing it, but it's not of you, it's just through you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a kind of a cliche. But it happens to be, a description of what happened in this case.
Mm-hmm. Did you ask yourself, as this was happening, where is this coming from?
Not really, because uh, I don't think there's an answer to it, where it's coming from. And looking back over my life as a writer, when I wrote The Sound of Silence and I was 23 years old,
Yeah.
that was probably the same kind of phenomenon. But at the time, I just thought, oh, this is kind of my best song at the moment, you know. And the same thing with Bridge Over Troubled Water, where I thought,
Hmm.
better than my usual. This is good.
Yeah.
By the time I was writing, and this happened during Graceland, I recognized that this was something that occasionally happens. When it does, you pay attention to it and you try to capture it and nourish it and look at it for whatever it is. But what is the source of creativity? We don't know. I don't even know if I want to know. It's just, it's there. I'm grateful for it. It's been there for most of my life. At a certain point, I can apply the craft of songwriting to it. I can be an editor and say, this is good, this would go here, this is unnecessary.
Yeah.
But first, there has to be a bulk of information before I can be the editor.
Yeah.
I mean, editing is delightful.
Yeah.
I don't like this, but I do like this. Give me a bunch of choices, I'll tell you which are my favorite.
Yeah.
But look at a blank page. No, that's intimidating.
Yeah. You'd said a few years back you weren't planning on writing anymore.
I didn't mean, yes, I did say that. But I literally meant I wasn't planning it. But I've been problem solving in terms of songwriting, you know, since I began at age 13.
Mm-hmm.
And if I continued, I would continue to problem solve in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But I really thought, if I want to, I'm not terribly interested in continuing to problem solve that way.
Yeah.
I could, but every time I set out on a project, it's going to take about 3 years. That's my usual thing. And I thought, I don't know, do I want to spend 3 years doing this, or would I rather spend it looking around the world while I still have the chance and see as much? And I thought, yeah, I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any pressing desire to write. But this dream, aside from what a strong impression it made, it sort of came in the same cycle. It was about 3 years after so that cycle seems to be part of my creative system.
Yeah. And it seems to have a life of its own.
Yeah, that's my rhythm. I'm grateful for it. I really enjoy it when it happens.
Yeah.
And when it's not going on, well, I think it's always going on.
Right.
But when it's not going on, I used to think, oh, I have writer's block. I can't write. But no, actually, what's going on is something deep and subconscious is working, and it will manifest itself at a certain point, and I'll say, I feel like writing this, all right. It's still in motion, that 3-year period, because I just started to write recently.
You've started again.
Yeah, I've written 2 songs. Yeah.
You mentioned before that your hearing problems, which how is that now, by the way?
It's not getting better.
It's not.
No.
When did it start?
About 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. And what did you notice?
I started to lose a hearing in my left ear, and it eventually, or it's at this moment, it's, I think 8% hearing in that ear.
Really?
I'm hopeful that something can be done, but I'm starting to get used to the fact that maybe nothing can be done. I can still hear well enough to play guitar and write.
Yeah.
But I can't hear well enough to play with 5 or 6 musicians and sing in a big space with a lot of noise. It's a confusion. Maybe that's fine. Maybe there's something to be learned from that, or
What do you think that would be?
have to see what it is. Acceptance of, less. You have less, and you have to make do with less.
Mm-hmm.
That would be true for everybody.
Yeah.
So it could be that. The most frustrating thing is I really took it for granted that I could do this thing, which is hear very well, hear sound very well. And when it went away, I was frustrated, I was angry. And I could go there, but there's no use to go there.
I imagine that must be a complicated conversation that you've had to go through in your own head about all that.
It is. Yeah.
And you probably feel different about it different days.
No, I feel pretty much the same about it, which is like, I'm just not happy about it.
You did play Newport last summer.
Yeah, things got worse since then.
Yeah.
Then I could still hear enough if I had speakers over here, but now I can't.
Yeah. Do you think that might be kind of your last big performance?
Well, I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not. I really wanted to perform the 7 Psalms.
Yeah.
And possibly I could, because it's a simple piece with a guitar
Yeah.
and kind of percussion instruments, so that's possible. Even though I wrote and played the guitar on this, I couldn't, even if my hearing was fine, I couldn't play it and sing it at the same time with the guitar. It's too complicated for me to be able to concentrate on my singing and storytelling and play this, so I'd need somebody else.
Yeah.
So I'll try that this week and see what I find out. I haven't given up hope, but I'm prepared to accept that I might not be able to.
I want to go back to the 7 Psalms and the lyrics somewhat, because a couple of people on hearing the album made comparisons to Bowie's Black Star and Leonard Cohen's You Want It Darker. Those ended up being their last albums, obviously. But
well, if that's the point of the critics' response to it, I think, well, you didn't really get what I'm doing.
Right.
This is not about this being a last album or my mortality or something. This was a piece that, came from quite naturally, and I didn't think of it as, well, this will be my last album, and so maybe it will be, but I don't know. I just saw Willie Nelson do a big concert at age 90.
yeah.
So I don't know. I hope it's not, because I enjoy making records, and as I said, I just wrote, not just, but I've written two songs. So I imagine I could make another record, and I don't know how long, but as long as I can write and sing, I'll make records, even if it's just for myself.
Yeah. You describe it as an argument you're having with yourself about belief or not.
Well, I think that's true. I don't set out to address any issue or point when I write. It emerges in the writing, and I say, "Oh, I see what this song's about."
Mm-hmm.
And that kept coming up in the songs in one way or another. One of the songs Your Forgiveness, it's called. I mean, actually addresses that. And in the verses are, I have my reasons to doubt. And then the chorus is, dip your hand in heaven's waters, God's imagination, all of life's abundance in a drop of condensation. Then it goes to, I have my reasons to doubt. But I ended that song, purposefully, with the dip your hand in heaven's water. So I'm balancing out and saying, well, I understand that there are reasons to doubt, but I'm going to come down on the other side. I like it more.
There's so many striking lines in this music, but there's one in Love is Like a Braid. You say, I lived a life of pleasant sorrows until the real deal came.
Yeah, I think if you have a real tragedy in your life, it makes mild depression seem like a pleasant sorrow. It almost seems like an indulgence. Yeah, you could feel like, I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
But then something really bad happens, some tragedy. That's really bad.
Yeah.
But several people have said to me, I really like that line. I lived a life of pleasant sorrows until the real deal came. And what they meant, what they heard was, and then I really got love. I really fell in love with someone.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't what I intended
Right.
it to mean, but it can mean that. I've said this before, but I am convinced that the listener completes the song.
Yeah.
What they hear is the meaning of what that song is. Once it leaves my my laboratory, then it belongs to everybody else to make of it whatever they want, and that's the truth. I have my own version of what the truth is, but another version of it may very well be more interesting or accurate than what I think. If the songs are good enough or flexible enough, they can mean there are several possible interpretations to it.
Yeah. Does the meaning of songs over time ever change for you?
It does change.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting question or an interesting observation. The Sound of Silence, like the way I performed it at Newport, is a very different song than The Sound of Silence, the way that was a #1 record in 1966.
Yeah.
It's aged into another feeling and another meaning. And there are quite a few of my older songs that seem to have aged well.
Yeah.
Let's see, Homeward Bound.
Yeah.
That has some other dimension to it that it didn't have.
What's the dimension it has now, do you think?
Well, when I was a kid, I was just traveling as a singer, and it was about coming home to my girlfriend. Now it feels like I've sung it at memorials.
Yeah.
It's a bigger home that we're going to.
As a songwriter, how does it feel to see one of your songs evolve like that?
Yeah, very gratifying.
Yeah.
I would have no way of knowing when I was 27 or 28 years old that Bridge Over Troubled Water would be. I didn't know that it would last for 50 years or something. Yeah. So yeah, some songs take on a life, and they're still relevant in their form, like the Rhiannon Giddens version of American Tune,
Mm-hmm.
where I rewrote two of the lines for her in that song. And it becomes powerful again. It's powerful because it's sung by a woman. It's powerful because it's sung by an African American.
Yeah.
So it takes on a different meaning than when I sing it.
Yeah.
Just as valid a meaning, but maybe becomes more powerful because you haven't heard it in that placed in that context.
Yeah. It is interesting when a song gets a whole new dimension like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you mentioned, a lot of people looked at this and thought you were writing about mortality, and you say you're not. But it's in here. I mean, it appears to be in here.
Well, it is. Yeah, it's part of the discussion.
Yeah.
But outside of that discussion, if you're asking me, do I personally think about that subject
Yeah.
inordinately?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Of course, I'm 81 years old. Of course I think about it. But I mean, is it pressing on me? No, it's not.
Yeah. So when you write Wait, for example, what are you thinking when those words come
Oh
out?
yeah, Wait is definitely about that subject, but it's the final song in the piece.
Yeah.
You know, and we've arrived at a place where it's, my instinct tells me it's appropriate to discuss this this subject now.
Yeah.
It's going to be the final song in the piece, and the pieces. Then I decided I was going to end that with Amen.
Right.
So that really says this is the end of the 33-minute Seven Psalms piece.
Is there some part in the whole process that gives you the most satisfaction?
I'm not sure that there's one part. I like the music part more than the words.
You do.
It's easier. It comes easier to me. And the words are yeah, you have to struggle more with words. But when my songs are reviewed, most of the reviews are about the lyrics.
Yeah.
Because because writers,
Yeah.
it's hard to write about music, about sound, but it's much easier to take a line and say, what did that mean? Or he's thinking about this or something. Yeah. But the ineffable is music, because what is it? It's some kind of sound, and then you're moved by it rhythmically or harmonically or melodically.
Yeah.
That's a mystery. It's a great mystery.
I want to go back to this question that I was asking before, which was when you talked about retiring from performing. And you said in one interview, it's an act of courage to let go. Because you kind of, I think your wording was, I'll have to see who I am, or am I just this person who defined by what I do? Do you remember that?
No, but sounds like me.
Okay. And I was wondering if you recall going through that process at all, and where you sort of found yourself.
Well, what happened was, now I don't have the option to go and perform. You know, now I really, really wanted to.
Yeah.
Now I can't, and I you know, was, but I know why I know why I said that. I had been doing that version of my live show for long enough that I had developed or changed the arrangements and the order, and changed the show to the point where I thought, that's complete now. I'm not going to make any better choices. You can tell when musicians are not interested in what they're playing, even if they're playing the right notes.
Yeah.
It's not right, you know. So when it's not right, you have to stop, or else you're a hack.
Yeah. You didn't want to be a hack.
I don't want to be a hack. No.
Yeah. Do you think about your legacy at all?
No.
No.
Not important.
No?
Not important. No.
But what would you like for your music, I guess?
I feel about the music is like, if it lives, it deserves it. If it doesn't live, it didn't deserve it. The purpose of this is, of the music, in terms of the culture, is to nourish the culture. There's always a source of nourishment, and if you're privileged enough to be that source for a certain period of time, it's a privilege. But it's not, if you're not, you could be disappointed personally, but the culture doesn't care.
Yeah.
They're fine. So then if you say, well, I'm fine too, you know? Either way,